There are days when the universe just slaps you across the face with a moment so absurd, so surreal, that you almost want to thank it for the entertainment, except you're standing in the middle of your own disaster. For me, that moment came when a woman shrieked, "Get off my property, you trespasser," at the top of her lungs. It was the kind of Karen scream that feels like it could split open the sky. High, sharp, weaponized. And if you've never heard one in real life, count yourself lucky. There she was, phone out, red light blinking, live streaming my apparent crime to her army of Facebook vigilantes. And what was my crime? Watering the petunias I'd planted, on land that, funnily enough, I owned, not her. I'll back up a sec. My name's Julian Vance, and I run a property management company, Summit Peak Holdings. I'm the guy who actually leased that particular patch of land to her HOA. And they were, at that moment, 3 days late on the rent. I wasn't out there to pick a fight. Just another Tuesday morning, fussing over the border flowers by my house, right where my property ends and the Ashwood Creek HOA's common area begins. The sun was coming up through the sycamore trees I'd planted myself when I bought the place back in 2017. Everything peaceful until my phone buzzed, a rent collection reminder. Ashwood Creek, 3 days overdue, $9,200 outstanding. Not chump change, but nothing I'd ever had to chase down before. Their treasurer, Gary Miles, solid guy, never missed a payment. I figured he'd just hit the wrong button on the bank app or something. Then, boom, enter Brenda Sterling, president of the HOA, Queen Bee of Ashwood Creek, striding toward me like she's marching into a courtroom, cobalt blue pantsuit, hair pulled so tight it looked like it hurt, and that phone held up like a taser. "What do you think you're doing, you thief?" She said it loud enough to rattle the fence posts. And there's nothing quite like being called a criminal on your own property before you've even finished your first coffee. I put down my hose and did what I always do: stay calm. Make no sudden moves, keep my hand where people can see them. "Ma'am," I said, keeping my voice low and even, "this is my property line, and I have every right to be here." She gave this laugh, sharp, cutting like glass underfoot. "I've been HOA president for 6 years. I know every blade of grass we own. You are trespassing." And by now, you could see the neighbors popping out of their houses, phones out, cameras rolling. Nothing draws a crowd like HOA drama in the suburbs. That's when I figured it was time to match her energy, at least a little. I pulled out my phone, opened the Property Flow app, and showed her my portfolio, nice and clear for the world to see. "Ma'am, do you know who you pay rent to for the community center and green spaces?" And you could see this moment on her face, not confusion, not recognition, just pure, undiluted rage. "Rent? Are you insane? We own this land. The developer deeded every acre to the association." I try to explain, patiently, maybe a little too calmly, that I own the common areas, not the individual homes, and the HOA leased them from me under a long-term ground lease. "Maybe check with your treasurer, Gary, about the monthly obligations." She turned around to the peanut gallery behind her, waving her phone, and started grandstanding. "Do you hear this lunatic? He thinks we pay him rent. He thinks he owns our community." Her livestream comments were filling up, people calling me a scammer, a creep, a corporate predator. It was a circus, and she knew exactly how to play the ringmaster. Still, I kept my cool. "I'm not demanding anything," I said, as the crowd started buzzing louder. "I'm stating the facts about a legal agreement that's been in place since 2017. She wasn't having it. "Show me the paperwork right now." Well, the original lease was locked up at home, and I wasn't about to start a sidewalk document review. "Your treasurer, Gary Miles, can verify the payments," I told her as firmly as I could. And right then, I saw it. For a split second, a flicker of something behind Brenda's eyes. Not anger, not confusion, fear. But she caught herself and snapped right back into character. "Gary has never mentioned any rent payments to me. I review every financial transaction. You're trying to con us." And just like that, she stormed off toward the community center, still live streaming, still ranting about predatory developers. As she disappeared into the building, my phone buzzed again. Property Flow. Payments still overdue. That's when I knew this wasn't just a misunderstanding. Brenda was staging a show, and I was cast as the villain. By that afternoon, the media storm hit. Local news, headlines, HOA president exposes land scammer. My business line blew up, clients, partners, even vendors calling to ask if I was some sort of con artist. My reputation, 10 years in the making, was getting dragged through the mud, all because Brenda decided to wage war, not just on me, but on everything I'd built. I figured the only way out was straight through. I emailed Gary, copying the whole board, asking, politely but clearly, about the late payment. Within minutes, I got a reply, supposedly from Gary, but it had Brenda's fingerprints all over it. The HOA owns its land. We owe you nothing. Expect my attorney. That's when the chills set in. Brenda wasn't just improvising. She'd already seized control of the narrative and was prepping to bury me. But then a lifeline. 3 minutes later, I got a call from Gary himself, whispering like someone was listening in. "Mr. Vance, please, don't tell anyone. I'm scared of what Brenda will do. Can you meet me at the Oak Barrel in an hour?" The guy sounded desperate. When I walked into the bar, Gary looked like he hadn't slept in weeks, hands shaking, eyes darting at the door. He slid me a folder, thick as a phone book. 6 years of records. Every rent payment, every bank statement, all signed, all legit. "Brenda always made me keep backup documentation in case someone had questions," he muttered. Turns out, Brenda had been disguising the rent payments, splitting them into smaller chunks, relabeling them as landscaping, consulting, maintenance, you name it, hiding the true nature from board. She told Gary the land was donated by the developer. We all believed her, he said. She's the expert. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about rent. Brenda had built an entire system of smoke and mirrors, manipulating financial reports, hiding the lease. I pressed Gary. Had she asked about breaking contracts lately? He nodded. Brenda was looking to terminate long-term obligations, especially my lease, because she wanted to sell the common areas to a developer. The only thing in her way? The lease with my company. And she was setting me up to be the fall guy. I told Gary, tomorrow, he needed to request an emergency board meeting, expose the irregularities. He was terrified, but I reminded him he could be the accomplice who kept silent or the whistleblower who spoke up. After a long, tense pause, he agreed. That night, I dug through every Ashwood Creek document I had. Lease, payment receipts, board minutes. Then I spotted something that made my stomach drop. The board resolution authorizing the lease was dated March 15th, 2017. But the meeting minutes showed the March 15th meeting was canceled because of a blizzard. Brenda hadn't just hidden the lease. She'd forged the approval. Suddenly, I realized I'd been collecting rent under a contract the board never officially authorized, and Brenda was going to use that to destroy me. Next morning, before the meeting, Gary called, barely whispering. "Brenda's planning to expose the fake documentation. She has the forged papers ready. She's going to blame you for the fraud." Brenda had crafted the perfect trap, committed the original crime, hid it for years, and was about to become the hero for exposing it, all while getting rid of my lease and torpedoing my business. At 10 a.m., I walked into the Ashwood Creek Community Center. The room was packed, the air thick with suspicion. Brenda stood at the front, righteous indignation dialed up to 11. "Ladies and gentlemen, the subject of today's meeting has just arrived," she sneered. She pulled up a doctored lease on the big screen, claimed it was a forgery, accused me of scamming $600,000 out of the HOA. She even flashed doctored records of my other properties, labeled fraud alert. The room exploded, shouting, demand for my arrest, lawsuits, the works. And that's when Gary Miles stood up. His voice shook, but he pushed through Brenda's protests. "This is the real lease agreement," he said, handing a thick folder to Carol, the board's secretary. "I've been making payments to Summit Peak Holdings for 6 years because the HOA has a legitimate lease." Brenda told me to keep it quiet. The room turned, first shock, then confusion. Brenda tried to spin it, but Gary wasn't done. He connected his phone to the projector, text messages, all from Brenda, asking how to break the lease, talking about selling the land, hiding payments. "You've known about the lease all along," Gary said, voice finally steady. "You told me to hide it, and now you're trying to destroy Mr. Vance's reputation to cover your tracks. Brenda lost it, waved around a fake bank statement showing me getting paid only $2,800 a month, not the full rent. But Carol jumped in, demanding to know where the other $6,400 went. Turns out, Brenda had been withholding detailed financials from the board for months. Backed into a corner, Brenda finally snapped. "You have no idea. I've been protecting you from yourselves. No developer wants to buy a community with an 18-year lease." The room went dead quiet. There it was. She confessed. She'd hidden the lease so she could sell out the neighborhood. "Fine," she spat, grabbing her laptop. "But when property values collapse, don't come crying to me. And Mr. Vance, you'll be hearing from the DA about your fraudulent business." She stormed out, but this time no one followed. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in a courtroom, accused of criminal fraud. Brenda had weaponized the legal system, and the media turned the trial into a circus. But my lawyer, David Chun, was ready. Emails, payments, everything, all laid out for the jury. Then Gary took the stand, backed by forensic accountants. They found Brenda had paid $18,000 a month to a consulting firm, her old company, Prestige Acquisitions, to figure out how to kill my lease and flip the property. When the truth hit, the judge didn't hold back. Brenda got 5 years in federal prison, over $1 million in restitution, and a lifetime ban from HOAs. Prestige Acquisitions got hammered with fines. My charges? Dropped on the spot. You know what stuck with me? Not the headlines, not the business surge afterward, but the text from my son. "Daddy, I saw in the news that you won. I always knew you were telling the truth." That meant more than any verdict. Now, a year later, I'm sitting under the same old sycamore, watching my son chase our golden retriever around the newly renamed Vance Community Gardens. There's a plaque at the base of the tree, in honor of truth, justice, and the importance of reading your lease agreements. Gary's the new HOA president. The lease is renegotiated, and the board runs on transparency now. Ashwood Creek's become a national case study in HOA accountability. The Brenda Law even made state headlines. My business is booming. I travel the country teaching property ethics. Brenda? She's out, forced to teach financial literacy to families who need it most. A little slice of poetic justice, if you ask me. "Dad, tell me again about the mean lady who tried to steal our tree," my son asks, crawling into my lap. I pull him close and smile. "Well, buddy, sometimes people try to take what isn't theirs by spinning big lies. But the truth always finds its way out, especially when good folks are brave enough to speak up. So what do you think? Was 5 years and $1 million fine enough? Or do people who exploit a community's trust deserve even harsher consequences? And what about you? Has your HOA ever tried to pull something shady? Drop a comment below, share your wildest neighborhood drama, and if you found this story worth your time, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. There's plenty more real-life justice out there, and I can't wait to tell you about it.